G'day guys, welcome to episode 182 of Ask Jack D. Today I take a question around, Jack, you've talked about the whisper that comes from within in the past that slowly becomes a roar. What is it that I'm actually talking about when I discuss that? When did mine start and how did it grow louder? This speaks to Unwritten, guys, which you can now pre-order at reinvent-tomorrow.com. You can also download a free chapter there if you haven't already so that you can get reading. For now, let's talk about this whisper, where it comes from and how it grows.
28 and I'm trying to shape history, pulling from the sky for some strength to take with me, line up the stars, fly away quickly and push the world forward like a tidal wave hit me. I ride the wave swiftly, I fear no man, check my titles mate quickly, came from the sky with the light of day in me and grew my own wings.
Welcome to episode 182 of Ask Jack D. I want to start by giving all of you guys a massive thank you. Your contributions, your questions, your comments, the energy you're giving us literally on every single episode has been phenomenal. So thank you. Across the show and the podcast, we're now getting 30,000 views and listens per week, right? So this community is absolutely on fire and beaming with energy, and that comes as a result of your contribution. So from Rosie, myself, Jack Mack behind the camera, and all of us here at the Entourage, thank you guys for making this so special for us each and every day. Rosie, how you doing?
I'm going very well.
How do you feel about the 30,000 a week that we're now doing?
I'm so excited. I can't believe it. See, we've come so far since we first started.
Yeah, it has come so far since we first started. Let roll a 2012 episode of Ask Jack. Let that roll now. Guys, getting publicity is is very easy when you know how. If you don't know how, it's incredibly difficult. If you do know how, it becomes incredibly easy. Most press releases are written based on the person or the company that's writing the press release. And the lesson that I learned very early on from a mentor who told me in no uncertain terms, Jack, no one gives a shit about Jack. So learning that lesson at a young age was startling, but freeing in a way because it enabled me to get over myself and start actually putting out stuff that was relevant. As you can see, we've come a long way from back then.
Yes.
Rosie, what's today's question?
Okay, so today's question comes from Una Phillips from Facebook.
Una.
Jack, in a recent Unwritten blog post, you talk about a whisper. You say, starts off as a whisper, a feeling from within hints ever so gently that you may be destined for something more. What actually is the whisper and when did you first hear it?
Wow, big question. Thank you. Okay, well, what's the whisper? Some people call it intuition, some people call it heart, some people call it gut, some people call it God, some people call it the universe, some people call it their higher self. But we all have an inner sense. It was the mystic Rumi who said there is a voice that doesn't use words. Listen. And what he was pointing to was that inner sense, that inner feeling, that inner knowing that to be human is to have, and to be human is to feel, right? And so when I talk about entrepreneurship is not a rational decision, like we don't wake up one day and go, you know what, I'm going to quit my job or drop out of university and start a business that I know nothing about, develop a product that I don't have yet and start selling it and probably not sell much and start losing money and have a lack of security through finance and my career in the hope of one day maybe actually becoming successful in this business even though the statistics are against me, right? We don't go through that rational thought process, or we might, but at least it's not the driver. The driver is this inner sense. And this is what kind of, in terms of the current conversation going on around innovation and all of that sort of stuff, no one ever started a great business because the government started offering tax incentives, right? You don't jump off a cliff and build wings on the way down because all of a sudden startups get a tax break, right? You do it because you can't not do it. There's this inner voice, there's this inner thing that starts off as a whisper. It starts off as something going, I think you could do something more. I think you're destined for something different. I think you can contribute something greater than what the traditional path might be offering you. And over months or years or decades, it doesn't matter, every person's different. That whisper slowly becomes louder, slowly becomes louder, slowly becomes louder until one day we wake up and we can't ignore it, and that's the day, boom, we go and we start a business. So we start actually, and it's not necessarily even starting our own business. It might be we start a family, or we quit one job and we start another. We start pursuing a life that aligns to who we think we're here to be. We start living a life on purpose, right? That's what the whisper is that becomes a roar. that ultimately enables you to follow a more meaningful path. The problem is this: we live in a culture that tells you that somebody else has the answers that you seek. If you go back to traditional education, I think traditional education sets up a lot of our cultural paradigms that form the boundaries in which we live. And in traditional education, you sit in the classroom, you sit there, you don't talk to the person next to you, don't look at what they're doing, sit there, look at the teacher, they have the answer, you don't. If you think you have your answer, they'll tell you whether you're right or wrong. So you don't have the answers, right, is the whole message that we are ingrained with since we're born, right? Either our parents have the answer, or the teachers have the answer, or the careers counsellor has the answer, or if you're in high school, sometimes on the weekends, the police have the answer. I was really reluctant to say that. That honestly used to happen to me. I shouldn't go into this. But that used to happen to me. One of the reasons I think I developed a healthy disrespect perhaps for my teachers at high school was because on weekends I'd be dealing with people a lot more powerful wearing a blue uniform. So you go back to school and it's like, you don't have a lot of authority in terms of consequence, if you know what I mean. Anyway, that was really random. But, we're taught that somebody else has the answer. Someone else can dictate what you can and can't do. I think life is best led opposite to that. Now, I'm not talking about doing things unintegral. I can put my hand on my heart and say the vast majority, if not everybody that watches this show already has a high degree of integrity, right? So you follow what is right for you. The answers that you need to develop in order to navigate your life are the answers that come from within. The most reliable leadership you will ever find is the leadership that comes from the voice or the feeling or the inner sense from within that we need to better listen to. We're told not to listen to it, right? We're taught to listen to somebody else. Fuck that. Get back in tune with who you are. Get back in tune with your intuition. Follow it. Listen to it. Honour it. Not to the neglect of what's intelligent. I'm not saying be irresponsible. I'm not saying do what's unintegral. As a quick integrity check, ask yourself, is it good for me, good for others, good for the planet? If it's yes, 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 then follow your heart and do what's going to be best for you, right? When did my whisper come about? I think from a very, very young age, but what helped my whisper become a roar was breaking the cycle. When I was I think I was probably 5 at the time. My dad became the managing director of a not-for-profit organisation called Breaking the Cycle. And Breaking the Cycle would take long-term unemployed youth off the street. They'd put them through a 3-month program, and then place them into employment. They were the most successful job placement agency for long-term unemployed youth in the country. And they'd take the most at-risk kids that they could find because they could only see a finite number of kids every year. So they wanted to take the worst of the worst, people that were on and off drugs, from abusive homes, in and out of jail. And then they put them through a 3-month program, out in the wilderness, in workshops and in classrooms, and they would transform these people's lives, right? And so I think Breaking the Cycle helped me recognise that the traditional system doesn't work for everybody, that a lot of people, like the vast majority of people, when given the right TLC and support, do become more of themselves and do grow into a beautiful person. And then Breaking the Cycle was shut down because the government pulled the funding. So I was also taught, one of the things my dad said to me afterwards is that you can't run off love, trust and pixie dust. There needs to be an element of commercial nous and commercial sensibility in order for whatever you're doing to travel, right? Even if you're in the business of making a difference, the fuel that will enable your vision to travel is finance. So there needs to be a level of financial and commercial rigor. And so that was very formative for me from the ages of 5 to 8, right? And so that played a part. That was one of the events throughout my life that enabled that whisper going, I think I want to dedicate my life to helping people lead meaningful lives. That was one of the events that enabled my whisper to become louder and louder and louder. Question for you guys watching this. What I want to know is this. When did your whisper start? At what age did your whisper start telling you that you should follow a non-traditional path and instead follow your heart and follow your intuition? At what age did your whisper start? In the comments below. Thanks, guys. I'll speak to you soon.
So what that means right now is my head's in the cloud with my feet tied down.